Have you ever wondered what happens to your recycling after it gets picked up? Join me on a virtual tour of the Tri-County Recycling Facility to find out. Our operation is unique because it is a partnership between Brown, Outagamie, and Winnebago counties. We work together to collect, sort, and ship the recovered commodities like plastic bottles, cardboard, and aluminum cans. Now follow along as we begin the journey out on the tip floor. It gets its name because the recycling trucks back in through one of our 3 overhead doors and do just that. They tip their load out onto the floor. Once they are finished, our front end loader will push the material into the corner to make space for other trucks to unload. After the floor is clear, they will take a large scoop of material and place it into the metering bin. This is how we calculate how much material we take in. We average around 300 tons or 600,000 pounds per day. That's the equivalent of 3 blue whales, 46 elephants, or 146 mid-sized cars. That is a lot of recyclable material. The material is then moved through the metering bin by a big metal wheel that spins very, very fast. This is how we break up the material so that it enters the facility in a controlled volume. Here is a great time to talk about tanglers. Items like extension cords, hoses, wires, and chain are not curbside recyclable. These items get wrapped around our equipment and can hurt our staff or damage our equipment. Please remember to keep them out. As we continue up the conveyor belt, we'll enter the Presort room. This is our first line of defense against contamination. There are 4 to 6 hand sorters in this room, and their job is to remove material that just shouldn't be here. Things like rigid plastics such as 5-gallon buckets and laundry baskets, scrap wood, and even scrap metal. Things like plastic bags, wraps, and films should not be inside your curbside recycling. Material should be placed loose inside your cart and never bagged. These materials are removed from the belt and dropped down the chute here. The 2 in front will be redirected to our trash line and make their way up to the landfill. The 2 bunkers in the middle will hold scrap metal, even though this material is not curbside recyclable and should not have come through our facility in the first place. If one of the hand sorters sees it, they will pull it off the line and place it in here to avoid injuring another worker or damaging the equipment. This material will be sent off to a scrap metal recycler. Following the conveyor belt into the main facility now, the material will drop down into our first disc screen separator. This is how we sort material by dimension. Flat items, like paper and cardboard, will float across the top, while 3-dimensional objects, like bottles, jugs, and jars, will fall down to the conveyor belt system below to make their way to the container line. Everything else drops through and continues on to another screen designed to remove glass. As the material moves across this part, the glass breaks and falls through small openings. These openings are about 2 inches by 2 inches, which means any item smaller than that also falls through. This line is meant just for broken glass, but as you can see, there's often a lot of other small materials on this belt. That's why we no longer accept shredded paper. If it's smaller than a sticky note or a credit card, it's too small for our system to sort properly. These tiny items become contamination in the glass line, making the cleanup process harder. The only thing we can still remove from this line is ferrous metal, like steel bottle caps or soup can lids. To do that, the broken glass travels under a crossbelt magnet, which pulls out metal items. On average, it removes around 1,500 pounds of metal from the glass stream every day. Once the glass reaches the next part of the system, it drops into a hopper that feeds into the pulverizer. This machine works like a giant hammer mill, crushing the glass into sand-like material. What's interesting is that it only breaks up the glass. Other material stays whole. This glass sand then enters a rotating drum called a trommel, which has a fine mesh screen. The screen lets the clean, sand-like glass fall through, while larger, non-glass pieces are carried away. From here, the good quality glass is built up in a pile where it is stored until it is ready to be loaded on trucks and repurposed. Heading back inside, we will take a look at the paper post-sort lines. 1 for cardboard and 3 for mixed paper. From here, hand sorters pull off items that are not paper and redirect them to the correct location. They have 3 chutes. One leads to the trash line. This is where they will drop film plastics, bags, and wraps, along with other miscellaneous items. Next to that is the chute that redirects to the container line. When you crush a can or bottle, it turns it two-dimensional, and it has a high likelihood of getting mixed in with the paper. This is why you should never crush your cans, jugs, or bottles before placing them in your recycling. The last chute redirects to the cardboard line. We break fiber up into 2 categories: cardboard and mixed paper. Mixed paper includes things like office and school paper, newspaper, junk mail, and magazines. Everything else that makes it past and down the conveyor here will drop down into the bunker below until we are ready to bale that material. The material will continue through the facility, going through the polishing screen before ending up on the container sort line. This is where your plastics, steel, tin, and aluminum material end up. Hand sorters work to try and pull off any fiber, oversized material, and electronics at this location. You should never put electronics or batteries in your recycling cart. This red piece of equipment here is the cross belt magnet. This is a larger scale of what you saw earlier on the glass line. This belt picks up all of the steel and tin and drops it down into the bunker below. If you look close enough, you can see those materials being sucked up and pulled off the line. Now it's time to meet the newest members of our team, the AI recycling robots. As we watch, the material goes underneath the vision system, which is made up of multiple high-speed cameras. By taking thousands of photographs, those images are sent to the robot's AI brain called Neuron. This system has been trained to recognize many kinds of materials, like different plastics, paper, metals, and even brand logos. Because it has learned from tons of recyclable items, it can identify what each object is and what it's likely made out of. Once Neuron decides that an item, for example, plastic milk jug, is HDPE or plastic number 2, it tells the robotic arm exactly where and when to pull it off the line. Because these machines help us sort out dairy containers like milk jugs, yogurt tubs, and butter containers, we gave them some fun cow pun names like R2D and Utter Magic. We have 4 of these robots in total, and we will view the last 2 in just a little bit. For now, we will continue down the line to our next piece of equipment, the eddy current. If you watch closely, you'll notice that the aluminum cans are doing something really strange when they fly off the end of the conveyor belt. They are being repelled up and over to the backside, so they are sorted out from the rest of the stream. Almost like when you put 2 magnets of the same polarity together, there's that little bit of resistance or an invisible force field. Something very similar is happening on the inside of this unit. The metal rod the belt is spinning on is actually sending out what's called an alternating magnetic field. This field is actually sending out electricity that is picked up by the aluminum cans and begins to swirl inside, just like small eddy currents you would see in a river, hence where it gets its name. It's actually those microscopic energy currents that are being repelled by the alternating magnetic field, thus causing the cans to fly to the back of the housing unit to be sorted out properly. Pretty cool. From here, the material drops down to the next conveyor belt and enters the optical sorter, or optical eye. What happens here is the material flies off the belt and goes over this bar of light. The bar of light is actually sending near-infrared signals up and bouncing back down. If the system reads that material as PET, or plastic number 1, it then will try to shoot these concentrated bursts of air at it through these eyelets to send it up and over to the correct conveyor belt. This is why it is really important that you remove all food and liquid from your containers before placing them in your recycling. If you leave a little bit of peanut butter in the bottom of a jar or soda in the bottom of a bottle, it makes it too heavy for our system to sort properly. You should always give your bottles, jugs, and jars a quick rinse before placing them in the recycling. After passing through the optical sorter, the rest of the material ends up on the last chance line. From here, the material will go through 2 more AI robotics and 1 more hand sorter to be recovered from the stream. At this point, most of the material on this belt should just be trash. Items that didn't belong here in the first place. Anything still on the belt after it passes the last hand sorter will make its way to the compactor and ultimately up to the landfill. This is what is known as the residual line, or residual rate, the amount of material that doesn't get sent back out to market. The average residual rate for MRFs, or material recovery facilities, around the country is anywhere between 20 and 25%. That means a quarter of all incoming material is going straight to landfills. However, here at the Tri-County Recycling Facility, over the last 3 years, we have averaged closer to 10%. That is half the national average. This is a combination of our residents sending us the correct material, as well as the work of our staff and equipment doing an amazing job of recovering these recyclables from the stream. Now that we have all of our paper, plastic, metal, and glass sorted, let's head over to the bunkers and balers. We have 6 bunkers, 3 on one side and 3 on the other, to hold all of our fiber and containers. Once we are ready to bale that commodity, they will open the bunker doors and that material will fall out onto the baler infeed. From here, it gets sent up the conveyor and into the baler. It gets squeezed at about 4,000 psi and creates the blocks that you see here. These blocks can weigh anywhere from 800 pounds or all the way up to 2,000 pounds. That's literally a ton of cardboard. We will produce around 200 bales per day and ship out just over 10 truckloads, with most of our material staying right here in the Midwest. So there you have it. Now you know what happens to your recycling after it leaves the curb. If you'd like more information, head over to recyclemoretricounty.org. From there, you'll be able to find a printable version of our recycling guide and use our built-in search tool called Waste Wizard. It's perfect for looking up how to properly dispose of items in our area. Oh, and don't forget to download the Betterment app. It's available on both Apple and Android. Just scan a barcode, and it will tell you whether that item is recyclable or not. Thank you for watching, and thank you for recycling right.